Canadian society today stands the most age-diverse society in human history. As you can see, approximately a quarter of our population is under 20, and another quarter is over 60, and the rest falls somewhere in between. And paradoxically, we are also the most age-segregated nation in history, which I believe you don't need convincing of this fact. And this separation of generation brings so many issues. So let's talk about the common tension very quickly. Ageism, it works in both ways. Anyone above 45 or 50 can definitely attest to seeing some effect of ageism. But younger people can also experience as well. It may take the form of being passed over for opportunities or being taken less seriously. Another common tension we see is lack of belonging, which contributes to the loneliness epidemic you are aware of or perhaps experienced. And the last tension we see is the feeling of insecurity and discomfort around people who are either older or younger than you. So these are the reality of age-diverse workforces that we don't want to gloss over because, as I mentioned, our society is largely age-segregated. We are not attuned to make those intergenerational connections. And sometimes there can be some generational cultural difference that make those connections a bit harder to make. Life normally unfolded in somewhat more predictable sequence, right? Educations, marriage, kids, retirement, and so forth. But today, they're no longer such standardized prescript. So key takeaway of all of this is that age, generation, life stage collectively influence how we relate to ourselves and others. So in the era of diversity, equity, inclusion, we are increasingly challenged to live authentically and also skillfully to embrace uniqueness, not just our own, but others at all times. And there are a lot of moments I also ponder, what action should I take? How do I embrace authenticity of others and make generational correction for mutual benefit? What strategy should I take? Last year, my former students, I would call it midlifers, spontaneously, organically formed a group they named CCS, Continuing Studies. To do what? To delve into the unknown. I really think they exemplify the transformative cohort, which I mentioned before. We made documentary films to follow this group. I participated as well. So some of the clip from these films you will be seeing as a discussion prompt. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce one of our CCS member, Eunice.
Hi everyone, I'm Eunice. And we found a nice connection with not just Keiko, but some of the other participants. So we decided to meet on the last Thursday of every month and call it Continuing Studies. So then Keiko decided to follow us as we sort of went on this journey. And I think it just sort of shows that you're never too old for self-discovery, and that doesn't matter your age, we all have challenges. It's just maybe when you're at a different point in your life, you can tackle those challenges in a different way. We don't talk about it constantly, but why we're together, that's sort of our common thread. The next clip we're going to show is with Lucy, and I think this clip is a great example of just because you're in the same age group or you have something in common, it doesn't make you the same person, that you have everything that you can understand each other for. So I think within the group, talk amongst yourselves on what messages, emotions, and ideas that you take away from this film and why.
And then I think a very interesting point that was brought up was how our difference in values, the difference in our cultural upbringings brings up, and different experiences brings about different opinions. So maybe we might not agree on everything, but then we are still open to different conversations.
So we were talking about why firstly it is a bit scary for seniors to connect, and we were talking about there's not many spaces in which people can connect and come talk. It's really having this table, having a conversation with not only older generations and younger generations, but also people that usually on the internet would not have an interaction or would not talk with one another, and saying, listen, you have a problem with this, I have a problem with that. We both want to make a better world, and this is really what we should be focusing about. It's not our differences, but how do we advance together into creating a better world. So really having this discourse, and that sometimes means breaking taboos or breaking ideas that a culture might have.
So my parents were part of that wave of immigration post-World War II from China. And in many ways, the immigration story of Chinese in Vancouver is my family's story. So I grew up really conflicted as a first-generation child. And I really found a way through this group and through expressing myself through art, a visual expression of my inner conflict of identity. So, here we go.
So what we spoke about was basically about like our stories of how what you mentioned that we don't talk about things with our grandparents, with our parents, that discourse which is not there, and there's so much to learn, that emotional aspect, and how Lucy mentioned in her video, the balance of it all, the two different generations are coming together and having that type of discourse.
Something that I observed while watching Eunice's story is how when community comes together, it fosters this openness in the space to be vulnerable. And my sense is, and also from the other video that we watched, there's a lot about listening with Lucy's story. So when somebody is heard, when people are listened to authentically, then it gives space for new ways to accept others, to accept ourselves, to be in community, and or to be alone, whatever it is. To embrace technology, to see its shortcomings, and to see its advantages. And so in this community aspect, in being in community, to really give voice and the ability to be heard. And then you see art, creation, and I believe that's a big reason why we're here, is to be creating, sharing, loving, kind. So, yeah, it's been really nice watching this video, sitting here.
So we talked about the importance of telling our own story, because in our daily life we're surrounded by those same narratives that shape our beliefs, misbeliefs, values. Even when we talk about climate change, we have one way to talk about it that delimits all the injustice that we see in different parts of the world. And so the plate, we saw the plate as, like the removal of feelings as well. The removal of experiences, subjectivity, with no facial expressions. And those plates remind me about the the historical figures in Quebec City that I've grown up looking, that there was no even indigenous influence in the historical books. And so I think that, or we think that putting appropriation to the stories and holding ourselves accountable and having that responsibility to personalize them and bring feelings will ultimately as well make us break the silos, make us less shameful, and connect with each other. No wonder why, if we are lacking of connection with those narratives, how we cannot connect as well with each other.
Given you all these materials, and so it is a little reading activity that we're going to introduce you guys to. Just keep in mind that this is not just an individual activity, as our theme is intergenerational dialogue. We would love for you to be able to collaborate with each other. And so in random moments, I will call out like, okay guys, let's switch these papers. So you'll see. I would love to introduce the wonderful Lucy to you guys. She'll be here to give you instructions on how to do this weaving activity.
Today, you're going to have a piece of paper like this, folded, yeah? Then you're going to make your design with a pencil or pen. You're going to lines, weaving a straight or waving lines, whatever you like. Don't go out of the lines that are straight. And then you have a straight or strips of paper. You can use them, you can cut them, you can full paper, you can break them. There are some pieces of wool, you can use them also. And anything that you do from now on is your own creativity. You do whichever you like to do and glue them, and think that this weaving is like somebody said, that is the feeling of ways that we are all connected. All human beings and nature, we are all connected. We don't see it, but we are.
Our word, which is really clear, that stands out from all the rest, is flourishing. So the conversation, so we're not in the same generation for sure, and so we've had I would describe it as a quite wonderful conversation. So thank you so much for the possibility.
Yeah, so basically like all three of the artworks, like we all worked on it together. So they reflect the, like Robin mentioned, that he knows a lot about the culture, and we had a lot of those conversations about different cultures. We got to learn a lot from Robin, and generally like the artwork does represent that, how like different cultures in a way are coming together, different communities are coming together and working on one piece itself. So yeah, I guess.
So our theme was permeating identity. So we talked a lot about ageism and how, although we're in different generations, in a way our lives are a little bit repeating. We face similar problems, even if it's on technology, a different platform. We face similar just experiences in general. So in terms of permeating identity, we created some very unique patterns. And through this, we're trying to represent the fact that although we're all very different, I think it's very important that we present ourselves and make sure, like you mentioned, that we accept ourselves even as our identity changes over time, because we're all still learning and we're all living our first lives. So I think it was a really interesting experience to get to know these people and to figure out what their identities are.
For me, I was really connecting to the experience of actually sitting at the table and sharing in the process, and then letting go of really any ideas of how things should look or be, so that's how this was formed.
I really don't know what I've done here, but this step of sharing the same work and giving it to someone else for a different generation as well, and looking at how, like, in certain way, I believe he fixed it, perfect, right? So that's the complementing part, I would say, that we can do when we are, in interacting with different generations, that we complement each other. Sometimes something that, because I thought, how he's gonna understand what was happening to my mind when I was cutting this paper. Now he doesn't have it in form. I cannot fix it myself, but he did it. So I think that's the amazing thing, right? About connections and the way to probably represent this maybe chaos sometimes, but at the same time, good feelings of grief. I don't know. It's just everything came together at the end of the day. And what I most appreciate from the experience is that, us getting together and like the feelings, I think that's the feeling of the panic, but at the end, the laugh, like we all enjoy it at the end of the day. So I think that was really good.
For me, the sheer moment of doing things together is calming, is soothing, is grounding, and it gets us to be kind of onto something without really being onto something. It's like we're doing this, we are together, we are sharing this moment, and also what distills from many of his works is how the interactions, the threads that take us from one moment to another, from one step in this process to the other one, how everything is interconnected. And I think we all enjoyed it a lot in our group, because it was also mixing conversations with the threads and the colors and the shapes, right? It's like a multimodal. Is that a multimodal thing? Yeah.
Thank you so much. It is incredible. Every team is sharing the journey of uncovering the wisdom we need for human flourishing. So thank you so much.
Well, I think we settled on the word connection, and about most of the way through, we were reminded by Keiko that we were working to express our word. And then I thought, well, I wasn't thinking about our word connection, but then I realized, well, I was listening to a lot of interesting stories from my fellow table mates, and then I thought, oh, I see. As I looked through these things that I was working on, each one of those little threads represents something that I was hearing from somebody about their lives and their history. That I thought, okay, well, we were connecting. So at least for me, it's kind of an embodiment of that.
So our group talks about connections. So the important thing is we have different kinds of connections. If you look at our weaving examples, we have horizontal type of connections, we have vertical types of connections, and we have wave type of connections. But what does it mean depends very much on yourself. How do you understand these kind of connections in different times? So the most important thing is there are many kinds of connections. At least we have 4 now. And then we have 40 people here or 20 people here. Then we have 20 plus 4, 80 kinds of connections. It all depends on ourselves. whether we want to make connections or not. Thank you.
So the theme we chose was a generational connection. We chose the word generational connection because we're doing it across generation, and we didn't want to use the gap because we thought the word connection conveys a sense of like hope and optimism that in the future we can all reach out to connect with people from different cultures, different generations, different times. So like for me, for my artwork, I chose to choose like 4 different I think colors to like represent each of us in our group. And I also use like the threads to connect each of us together to just show that even if we're not like, maybe we don't know each other, like for example, like the blue and like maybe like, I guess, green never really touch, like never really connect, but we have our own connection. We have our friends are also connected to other people, and so we can learn from our friends have like learned from others. So there's a lot more like than just direct connections. There are also like indirect connections, and it spreads out into like a web of like being connected, I guess.
In the interest of time, I guess we will be closing. So in my closing word would be gratitude, I think, for everyone to showing up and for being caring enough to be part of this co-creation movement. And when we think of all the challenges we faced, it comes down to what we care about. And human flourishing is not about individual, it's about all of us, and also the way of being that allow us to bring forth a future filled with love and potential. So let's keep connecting each other, and thank you again for everyone for showing up today. And maybe